They are basically screwing over their own population, they meaning the American politicians. And when I say politicians, let's call them out there for what they are, right? They're servants of Wall Street and the corporations. They're screwing over their own country to give money to the arms dealers, okay? So just let's be clear, when people in Congress say, oh, we are giving aid to Ukraine, they don't really care about Ukraine. The money is going to line the pockets of corporations that make weapons, right? So Northrop Grumman or Boeing or General Dynamics or Raytheon or Lockheed Martin, these are the top 5. It's going to line their pockets, and that's why their stocks and their shares are up like this, because they love war. It's not a secret, right? They make weapons. So the arms industry profits enormously from what's happening in Ukraine. They don't want the war to stop. They don't want a diplomatic settlement. And that is what is really unfortunate, because they are using Ukrainians as pawns to prod Russia. And Ukrainians are suffering the most from this. And then, of course, as a side effect, as a secondary effect from that, you have the sanctions, which are, the blowback from the sanctions. So people in America, people in the US, in Europe, feeling the full brunt of the higher food prices and energy prices. This is exactly what I'm talking about when I say that the establishment, meaning the political class in the United Kingdom, in the European Union, in the United States, they always have money and time and energy and dedication for corporations, right? Or for other rich people. They always have the right solutions for them, and they always have excuses for their own people. And this is one of those times where you're seeing a handout by Congress to the military-industrial complex, literally at the same time, while people in America cannot even buy baby formula. You would think that given the crisis, there should be more attention, more aid, more care, more help, more assistance from the US government for the US people, for its own people. And it's one example, right? You could say the same about European countries, that they don't care enough about their own, but all of a sudden they have money and they have, resources for war. It's interesting, right? It's always the case. Always the case. And again, that doesn't mean like, oh, people in Ukraine should just be left to fend for themselves and screw them. No, I'm not saying that. This is putting words in someone's mouth. The point is that, you should help both, right? You shouldn't give all this lion's share to the weapons dealers and then nothing to people. You understand? So this is really emblematic of this corporate greed and how the corporations are running the government. I'm very, very confident that if you just went up and asked people in the street about a lot of issues, not just this recent, $40 billion, a lot of issues, they would tell you the same thing. They would tell you that, we have our own problems and we should take care of this and that instead of giving XYZ to Wall Street or XYZ to, the weapons dealers and so on, right? But of course, this view is not popular. It's not popular. You're not allowed to really say that because then you're a Putin puppet or so, whatever. But again, I want to be very clear. Like I really have trouble standing any mainstream media, whether it's Fox or MSNBC. And I think you should be careful because just because today you have, Laura Ingraham talking sense or something, or I don't know, a couple of Republicans voting against this. Fine. Yes. They're in some of the things they say, they're right, that this is it's risking a war, you risk starting World War III. This is, you should be taking care of the American people first. Fine. However, if the roles were reversed, if they were in power, we don't need to guess, right? It's a constant cycle. Beware of the wolves in sheep's clothing because they're in both parties. I wouldn't suddenly go, oh, you see, the Republicans are better than the Democrats. No, it's again on an individual basis and an individual topic. And when you understand how the game works in Washington, you realize that actually these two, the Republicans and the Democrats, they're really not two parties, but more like two wings of the same party. And then you will kind of understand the game a bit more. Because a few guys dissenting here and there and saying the right things doesn't change the overall picture, unfortunately, because the majority of them will always be what we've seen. And you see the majority voting in favor of this, both Democrats and Republicans. For me, the way I see it, dissenting voices, especially against war and the military-industrial complex, very rare. But be careful about voices and those who actually vote against it, because they're two different things, right? It's very easy to talk like Cori Bush does on her website, and then she still votes for it, right? That's really people are falling for this trick. Don't fall for it. As Glenn said, the so-called anti-war left does not exist anymore. I don't think it existed. And we're talking in the Democratic Party, right? Of course, there are leftists in the US who are against war, but we're talking about in the mainstream, in the establishment. Yeah, it doesn't exist. It's gone. Forget about it.